Hey everyone, hope you're all having a wonderful day. In today's video, we'll explore a touching story of compassion and strength. When Alex faces ruin after a devastating flood, it's Lytuna's quiet courage and heartfelt support that help him stand again. It's a story about how true connection can heal even the deepest wounds. If you love emotional stories about resilience, hope, and human kindness, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next episode. Rain hammered the earth outside, each drop slicing through the night like a blade. Inside the dimly lit room, Alex sat still, his face faintly illuminated by the glow of his phone. A message from Adam flashed on the screen. "The grapefruits are amazing, Alex. Customers love them." For the first time in days, a real smile broke across his face. His eyes gleamed with something rare, hope. He could already picture the new order rolling in, prices rising, and finally being able to reward everyone who had toiled beside him for months. But before that feeling could settle, the wind howled through the cracks of the door, sharp and cold. Then came the buzz. "Boss," Ms. Land's voice trembled through the phone. "Heavy rain, the riverside groves flooding." Her words hit like thunder, shattering the fragile moment of joy. Alex shot up, heart pounding, the faint color on his face draining away. "What? Is it flooded yet?" His voice cracked with tension. "Not yet, but the river's rising fast," she replied, panic hiding behind her calm tone. "The workers are trying to save the seedlings, but Alex didn't need to hear the rest. He knew. He could already see it. The brown floodwaters swallowing the rows of trees, months of sweat and faith drowning under the storm's rage. He didn't hesitate. Throwing on his raincoat, he stepped into the storm. The rain came down in thick sheets, soaking him instantly, the world around reduced to gray and chaos. The muddy village road clung to his boots, pulling him back as if the earth itself wanted him to stay away. The wind slapped his face, cold and wild, but he pressed forward. In his mind, the images collided. The laughter of villagers during harvest, the golden fruits glistening under the sun, the smell of wet soil after rain. Those memories mixed now with flashes of ruin. The storm wasn't just threatening his groves, it was testing his faith. Still, deep within, something small but unyielding flickered. The fire that had built everything from nothing. He had faced drought, debt, and doubt before. This was different. But he wasn't about to let nature wipe away his dream without a fight. He trudged on, rain lashing, his raincoat heavy like armor in a losing battle. Each step was an act of defiance, a vow whispered to himself, "I won't give up." When he reached the groves, it was worse than he imagined. The floodwaters were already swirling, carrying away red soil, twigs, even some fallen fruit. Workers ran through the mud, shouting orders lost in the storm's roar. Ms. Lan approached, soaked to the bone. "We managed to save some of the early ripe fruits," she yelled over the wind. "But the unripe trees, they're already underwater." Her words tore at him. His chest tightened, breath short. He turned his gaze toward the half-submerged groves. The sight broke him. And then, the phone buzzed again. Adam's voice boomed, impatient and sharp. "Alex, the clients want confirmation. They need next week's shipment. If we can't deliver, the contract's off." Alex closed his eyes for a second, raindrops running down his face like tears. "I'm trying," he said, voice trembling, but even as he spoke, he knew how hopeless that sounded. Images of rotting fruit flashed before his eyes, fruit that would never make it to any table. The smell of decay, the faces of villagers who trusted him, who had put everything they had into this season. "Why?" he muttered under his breath, staring at the storm. "Why now?" Ms. Lan moved closer, her voice almost lost in the rain. "Boss, maybe we can harvest what's still above water, sell them early before they spoil." Alex turned sharply. "At this quality, who would buy them? They'll taste sour, immature." His shout drowned beneath thunder, frustration cracking through the storm. Mud clung to his boots, heavy like the weight in his heart. The phone buzzed once more. This time, a text. "No goods. We'll find another supplier. Sorry." For a long second, Alex just stared at the message. His hands trembled around the phone, the screen blurring through the rain. That one short text felt like a blade twisting deep inside. All the months of work, all the trust, gone. Just like that. He looked up, toward the groves, toward the people still struggling to save what they could. His heart throbbed with guilt. He wasn't just losing a deal, he was watching the livelihoods of everyone around him wash away. The rain began to ease, but the sky stayed gray, mocking his despair. Floodwater rippled around his boots. He felt hollow, frozen. Inside, two forces clashed, surrender and defiance. And then, through the blur of rain, another image rose in his mind, Lytuna. Her face, calm and warm, flashed before him, her quiet strength, her belief in him, even when he doubted himself. That memory cut through the storm like light. "Harvest the early ripe fruit," he said suddenly, voice low but firm. "Now, every piece that can still be saved, bring it in." Ms. Lan hesitated. "But boss, we'll take a loss." "I know," he interrupted. "Do it anyway." The tone in his voice silenced her doubts. As workers hurried off, Alex stood there, watching the water swirl around the roots of his trees. Each tree felt like a wound. Each word from Adam, each raindrop, each lost fruit, all of it pressed on him like a mountain. But beneath that crushing weight, a spark refused to die. He clenched his fists. He would not let this dream drown, not completely. If he couldn't save the harvest, he'd save the spirit that built it. For himself, for the villagers, for everyone who believed. The storm still raged, but in his heart there was a quiet fire burning, steady, defiant, unbroken. The flood could take his crop. It could even take his profit. But it would never take his will. And as the night wore on, Alex stood in the rain, soaked, trembling, yet unmoving. A man who had lost almost everything, but refused to let go of hope. The rain slowed to a drizzle, soft but relentless. The road to Lytuna's house glistened under a thin veil of mist, slick as the worry pressing on Alex's chest. He parked his motorbike by the gate, the tires sinking slightly into the mud. For a moment, he just stood there, watching the thin trails of smoke rising from the roof. The familiar scent of wet earth and wood ash filled the air, the smell of survival after the storm. In the yard, Lytuna was crouched beside a trench she had been digging to divert the rainwater. Her clothes were damp and stained, her hair plastered to her forehead. Yet when she saw Alex, her face lit up. "Alex!" she called, her voice bright and warm, slicing through the gray air like sunlight. That one word melted something inside him. He walked toward her, heavy boots splashing through puddles. "You're okay?" he asked, glancing past her toward the small house. Lytuna nodded, wiping her brow with the back of her hand. Henry's sleeping inside. We're fine, just trying to keep the water out. Relief swept through Alex, leaving behind a quiet ache. But even as he saw her safe, the storm's aftermath burned in his mind. The drowned trees, the ruined fruits, the workers' anxious faces. The floods destroyed almost everything, he said finally, voice tight. Unripe fruit will rot, and the rest, it's not enough. The contract might collapse. Lytuna paused her digging, leaning on the shovel. Her eyes softened, not pitying, but calm, steady. Alex, she said, no one can predict disasters. You lose one harvest, but you still have your people. You still have hope. He looked at her, rain dripping from his hair. Hope doesn't pay the bills, Lytuna, he murmured bitterly. The buyers are pulling out. The villagers counted on this season. I told them we'd make it big. Lytuna stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. You gave them something even more valuable than profit, faith. You made them believe in what they do. That doesn't disappear in a flood. Her words struck deep. She didn't talk about numbers, contracts, or losses. She talked about people, the one thing Alex had built this entire journey for. He swallowed hard, his throat tight. I watched everything we worked for sink under muddy water. You think I can just move on from that? She gave a faint smile. No, not easily. But you can rebuild. You always do. The silence between them filled with the soft patter of rain. From inside, baby Henry's cry echoed faintly, fragile, yet full of life. Lytuna set her shovel aside and went to check on him. Alex followed her gaze as she entered the house, her steps sure despite the mud. He leaned against the wooden fence, staring at the fields beyond. Land once alive with fruit and laughter, now a soggy plain of sorrow. The air smelled of wet leaves and quiet defeat. When Lytuna returned, Henry nestled against her shoulder, eyes half open. She smiled faintly, swaying him in her arms. See? She said softly. Life keeps moving forward. Alex watched her, the weight in his chest slowly easing. You make it sound simple, he said, half smiling. It's not simple, she replied. It's courage. The same courage you had when you started everything with nothing. Her words wrapped around him like the warmth he hadn't realized he needed. He sighed. Adam's already found another supplier. The clients don't care about storms, just delivery dates. I can't blame them, but it still hurts. Lytuna nodded. You can't control the storm, Alex, but you can control what you do after it. He looked up, her reflection flickering in his tired eyes. And what if I can't rise again? You will, she said, her voice steady as a heartbeat, because you don't know how to stop trying. The simplicity of that truth silenced him. For a while, neither spoke. The drizzle softened, turning into a fine mist. Lytuna's hand rested lightly on his arm, a small gesture, but it carried the weight of comfort words couldn't reach. I thought I'd built something unbreakable, Alex whispered, but one night of rain proved me wrong. Lytuna looked up at him. Maybe that's not weakness, she said. Maybe that's what strength really is, knowing it can all fall apart and still choosing to rebuild. Her eyes held his, calm, unwavering, and in them he saw something he hadn't felt since before the storm. Belief. Henry stirred again, his tiny hand brushing against Lytuna's collar. She smiled and pressed a kiss to his forehead. He'll grow up in this place, she said quietly. He'll see that no matter how hard the rain falls, people here keep standing. Alex looked at her, really looked, and felt a warmth bloom inside him. "You always know what to say," he murmured. She laughed softly. "No, I just say what you already know, but forget when the rain gets too loud." That made him smile, a real one this time, faint but full of meaning. He took a step back, watching her. Baby Henry nestled close, framed by the mist and the soft golden glow from the house. In that moment, something inside him shifted. The storm had taken much, but it hadn't taken everything. Not the people, not the purpose, not the quiet fire that still burned beneath the wreckage. He felt it again, the will to stand, to rebuild, to fight. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice steadier, "I'll gather everyone. We'll start sorting what's left, clean up the grove, maybe salvage the tools. There's still work we can do." Lytuna nodded, her smile widening. "That's the Alex I know." He chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "The one who doesn't know when to quit? The one who refuses to." They both laughed quietly, the sound mingling with the soft whisper of rain. For a long moment, they just stood there, two figures in the gray light, surrounded by ruin, yet anchored in resilience. The flood had torn through their world, but it hadn't drowned their humanity. As he turned to leave, Alex glanced back one last time. Lytuna stood by the door, holding Henry close, her eyes following him. There was no pity there, only faith. And somehow, that faith was enough. When he reached his bike, the drizzle had stopped. The night air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of grapefruit blossoms that had survived the flood. He took a deep breath, looked toward the horizon, and whispered to himself, "We'll start again." The sky, still bruised from the storm, showed a faint line of dawn breaking through. The flood had tested him, stripped him, almost broken him. But it had also revealed something deeper. The reason he fought so hard in the first place. Not just for profit, not even for survival, but for the people who believed in him, for the dream that refused to die, for the quiet promise that no matter how heavy the rain, there would always be another morning. And as Alex rode away, the sound of his engine faded into the mist, a soft echo of defiance, a vow whispered to the wind. The storm had passed. The rebuilding had just begun. After a violent storm destroys his grapefruit groves, Alex finds himself on the edge of collapse, facing lost contracts, ruined crops, and the despair of letting his workers down. Struggling against guilt and hopelessness, he visits Lytuna, who is also battling the aftermath of the flood. Through her quiet strength and unwavering belief in him, Alex rediscovers the courage to stand up again. Lytuna reminds him that success isn't just about profit, but about people, faith, resilience, and community. In the ruins of the flood, their bond deepens, turning pain into purpose. With her encouragement, Alex vows to rebuild, not just his business, but the dream they all share. It's a story about love, strength, and how compassion can become the light after the storm.